Ladies and gentlemen, I have a massive announcement to make. You're not going to believe this. The UFC is not rigged. It is not fixed. Geez, I can't believe that I have to say this. And the reason I am saying it is because I'm seeing so many trolls all over social media claiming now that the UFC is rigged. I just put some pics on for UFC 322 on my Instagram.
Michael, I need to talk to you about something.
Can't a man just get a bit of peace? My word, I'm trying to relax here.
Sorry, I just wanted to talk about UFC 322.
Whoa. UFC 322? That is my world. What do you want to know, babe? And everyone's like, how do you even make picks and bet on this sport when it's fixed, when it's staged, when it's rigged? Absolute goddamn nonsense, okay?
This is number one bullshit.
You know it. I know it. There's a lot of people out there, though, they like to talk shit. They like to rip on the UFC. You know who they are? It's the usual suspects, and they're making a mountain out of a molehill because this is an opportunity to talk badly about the UFC. There's headlines out there, and Oscar De La Hoya, for example, saying, oh, the UFC is being investigated by the FBI. No, the UFC called the FBI. Now, let's get into it real quick. Last weekend, I was on the call with Daniel Cormier and Brendan Fitzgerald. Isaac Dulgarian took on Yadira Devai, and Dulgarian's a really good wrestler, okay? And he didn't have a good showing, okay? And prior to the fight happening, apparently there was a huge spike in betting on him to lose in the first round. Now, Jesse on Fire does a YouTube channel. He sent me a video yesterday claiming to know that who it is that's behind all of this, and apparently there was like $1 million came in, or $2 million. I forget the exact number, so don't quote me on it. Go look at Jesse's video. On him to lose in the first round. So they went and spoke to him because it was flagged to the UFC because they have a partner that analyzes all the betting to make sure that there's nothing unusual or illegal. And they went and spoke to him. He assured them, no, listen, no, don't be silly. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to smoke this guy. I'm going to beat him in the first round, this, that, and the other. Fight happens. He goes out there. He shoots a double leg takedown. Can't finish the takedown. Typically, he's a really good wrestler. Takedown gets stuffed. He gets his back taken and he gets choked out in the first round. So then the UFC's like, oh, you know, listen, something definitely happened. There's a video of Dana explaining exactly what happened. In fact, take a look.
We're with a company called IC360, and they are the best bet monitoring company in the business. They reached out to us and they told us that there was some unusual action going on with that fight. Do we know anything? We didn't. So what we did was we called the fighter and his lawyer and said, what's going on? There's some weird betting action going on in your fight. Are you injured? Do you owe anybody money? Has anybody approached you to, and the kid said, no, absolutely not. I'm going to kill this guy. And so we said, okay, the fight plays out and first round finish by rear naked choke. Literally the first thing we did was call the FBI.
So it was Dana White that called the FBI to say, look, listen, you got to get a handle on this because obviously the credibility of the sport is at risk. Now, sports betting and fixing sports betting is a big thing, and certainly in combat sports. I mean, you go back throughout generations for hundreds of years in the boxing world, right? It's always been a thing. There is so many movies about this exact subject. I have a movie coming out soon called Atlas King, where I play a fighter that was supposed to throw a fight, but didn't throw a fight. This is not something that's new. This is not a new phenomenon. However, it is new in the UFC because it doesn't happen. Now, I've been a part of the UFC for 20 years in January, and I've never heard anything like this. Now, there was talk of fights being fixed in Pride back in the day. I never fought in Pride, so I don't know the details, but I've heard the stories. I've seen the folklore. I've seen people talking about it on message boards, on Twitter, and all the rest of it. Apparently back in Pride, that was the deal, right? It might have happened, it might not, I don't know. They encourage fighters to take steroids and all the rest of it. Well, in the UFC, that's not the case. They have the USADA, or the drug testing agency, in place as well to stop any kind of cheating, whether that's in betting or in the cage. Now, of course, Dulgarian since last week has been let go from the roster because obviously, when anytime something like this is going to happen, you're going to get cut from the roster, and his purse has been withheld, and now he's being investigated by the UFC. And of course, you might have seen there's been a lot of people come out of the woodwork and say, oh, yeah. I had people come to me. And Dana responded to this perfectly. And I'm not being a mouthpiece for Dana before you all start. I'm being an advocate for the sport that I love and cherish, okay? Dana answered it perfectly. He's like, well, hold on a minute. Why didn't you tell us? If they've been approached before, now they're going to get approached by the FBI. FBI.
You know, you're seeing things out on the internet where like fighters are coming out and going, "Oh, I was approached. I was approached." Really? Why didn't you tell us that? Or more importantly, why didn't you tell law enforcement that you were approached? Now you're saying that you were approached?
And these guys that have come out there and said it, and I don't know if it's true, I don't know if it's lies, I don't know if they were doing it for clout, but they've got some harsh questions to answer to the FBI.
It's like if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I want you to rob a bank. I'm going to rob banks. Want to rob a bank with me?" And you don't do it. What, you're not gonna tell law enforcement? It's really weird that fighters are coming out now saying they were approached. And they're going to be approached now by the FBI.
Because if you don't tell them what happened, you are not corroborating with a federal investigation. And if you can't prove that what you said is true, then you're going to look like a bit of a fool. When you're just doing it for clout, it's a weird thing to try and get clout over. But there has been a few fighters come out and said that. And we shall see what happens there. But as I say, you know, every Tom, Dick and Harry is coming out of the woodwork. They're all talking shit. It's all the usual suspects. They're making a mountain out of a molehill. Now, Mark Montoya from Factory X, where Isaac Dulgarian trains, he came out, he did a statement saying, "Listen, we don't know anything about this. What are you talking about?" The point that I'm making is just because one guy, and let's be honest, this is a pretty good track record. The amount of fights that go on, for there to be two cases, that's pretty good. Now, obviously, a lot of people might turn around and say, "Now, hold on a minute, okay? That's two cases that you know about." And yeah, sure, that is correct. But given the fact that they do have a partner that monitors all the betting, i360, I forget the name of it off the top of my head.
IC360.
They've never flagged any others because this isn't really a thing. Because for the most part, mixed martial artists, fighters, they believe in themselves. And this isn't back in the 40s or 30s or even recently with the mafia in boxing, getting hold of guys and putting a gun to them and going, "Hey, you go down in the second, kid, okay?" You know, look at Pulp Fiction, for crying out loud, with Marcellus Wallace. Your ass goes down in the fourth.
When you're kicking it in the Caribbean, you're going to say to yourself, "Marcellus Wallace was right. In the fifth, your ass goes down."
You know, this isn't a movie that we're living in. Granted, there is criminals, there's bad people, like in any walk of life. You know, like someone that works at a bank. Okay, someone that works in a bank, they might be involved in an inside job, like something you might see from a movie. Does that mean that every bank is fraudulent? Does it mean that they're all on the take? Does it mean that everyone that works at a bank is scamming the banking system? No, it doesn't. Get a hold of yourself, get a grip, stop jumping on the bandwagon and talking just for the sake of it. Now, again, I'm not defending the UFC. I'm defending the sport that I love and hold so dearly that has given me so many opportunities. Fighters aren't like this. And maybe there is a few, like this guy, Dulgarian, maybe, allegedly, that did this, okay? Maybe there is. But that's on them. You can't tarnish an entire sport, an entire category of athletes. And even for these people that were approached, it sounds like most of them turned it down anyway. So when you look at Isaac Dulgarian, I don't understand this. Here's a guy that now has a record of 8-2, I believe. And he had a very, very bright future. He was a tremendous wrestler. He was very good. He was very talented. And he has thrown away his entire future as a combat sports athlete. You know, you got to take the hard path in life. Nothing's going to be easier. Anytime you get offered a shortcut like this, it's never a good idea to take it. But that's precisely what he did. He took the shortcut. He took the easy way. He threw a fight, saw, you know, a quick shortcut to making a ton of money rather than believing in himself and doing it the old-fashioned way. Now, allegedly, if this did happen, who knows? Maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe there were some really nasty people around him that were like, you know, pulling strings, I don't know, threatening his family. I'm just thinking of things off the top of my head. And the reality is that back in the early days of this sport, it was kind of like the Wild West, you know, but now as the sport has got so much bigger, it is so much more professional. To be a manager in this sport, you're basically a lawyer. Okay, you know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. You're an educated man. This isn't for cowboys, okay? I've been repped by managers in the past that didn't really know what they were doing. The level of professionalism involved at this sport, from agents to managers to all across the board, it is a very professional landscape. Doesn't mean there can't be the odd cowboy here and there, but that's just the world. That's just life. Isaac Dulgarian allegedly has made a huge mistake. But I tell you what, Oscar De La Hoya saying that the FBI are investigating the UFC. That's just nonsense, okay? The UFC called the FBI to say, hey, hold on a minute, you might want to take a look at this. So anyway, just a quick video to say the next time that you're watching a fight, don't think that all the fights are fixed. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are looking at all kinds of fights to say that Jason Herzog's being investigated by the FBI and 100 fights are being looked at. Absolute, utter nonsense.
I've met with the FBI twice today. People out there talking, oh, there's hundreds of fights under it's total bullshit.
Bullshit, number one bullshit, whatever you want to say.
This is number one bullshit.
It's just a bunch of drama queens jumping on the bandwagon and talking for the sake of it. Just like always. Social media is great. Well, it has its ups and downs. It has its good points and its bad points. And just lately, certainly on Twitter, there's a bunch of dickheads that like to talk shit for absolutely no reason. Anyway, rest assured, the next time you're watching the UFC, these guys are going to town. They've worked their absolute arses off to be the best version of themselves. And 99.9999999% of them all ain't even considering or thinking about throwing a fight.
That's fucking illegal.
They would slap you in the face if you suggested such a thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you think. No doubt you're going to have a lot to say. Subscribe and ring the bell. See you soon.